I'm Lindsay Whistance. I work in the UK as a livestock researcher at the Organic Research Centre. My role in Re-Livestock project is working in this instance in task 5.4, which is looking at animal welfare in the face of a changing climate. The reason that animal welfare is important is that the better the animals are able to withstand the pressures of a changing climate means that it's easier for the farmer ultimately to produce an animal that is productively active but also has a life worth living. So in a sense we are ticking the boxes in terms of food production, but we're also ticking the boxes in terms of our responsibility towards these animals as a species in their own right. Within the work in Re-Livestock, there are specific trials looking more closely at animal welfare, but there is also an overall task where we are trying to understand the implications of the changing climate on the resilience of each of our farmed species in our different systems, and specifically their welfare. What we're trying to understand is how each of the innovations and trials impacts on animal welfare, regardless of whether the initial intention is to resolve something to do with feeding practice or to do with better breeding. Trying to understand the relevance of this in terms of the animal itself and its lived experience. So there are lots of elements of stress that are coming from climate change, and the thing that we're focusing on is heat stress, to get a handle on how we assess animal welfare in the face of the changing climate. The heat stress can have multiple components to it. It can impact productivity, but it very clearly has a welfare impact on the animal themselves. We're trying to understand this in terms of current measures, so we're using the temperature humidity index to understand how the animal changes or how the climate changes for the animals and the animals' experience in these systems. What we're trying to understand within the animal welfare task is how this translates into the lived experience of the animal in terms of the different measures of welfare that we can use. So that might be their behaviour patterns, it might be their biological or physiological responses to the changing climate or the innovation that's being tested, and it might also be their emotional welfare. We are very aware now that we have these very strong relationships between these three different measures, certainly in human terms. We're trying to better understand those relationships in animal welfare terms. As a person who studies animals, behaviour is a very important component of their welfare. It tells us a lot. So reading the animal's behaviour and understanding what the animal is telling us is a very important measure to include in all of our welfare considerations.